This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. Now, one of the things I haven't really gotten to after this Myles Garrett trade is some thoughts from the national media on that. So that's what we're going to look at today. The NFL on NBC, Mike Florio and Chris Sims talk about this trade, and I think they have an interesting perspective of this. Obviously, they're aware of Myles Garrett, but they're based in LA. They're LA guys. They're very aware of the LA Rams, and what makes this trade interesting, at least the coverage of it, is part of the national coverage is also the local coverage, right? Because you'll see a lot of like thoughts and takes about how good people think Jared Verse is, and it's not coming from the local media per se. Like, it's not coming from LA News 5 or LA News 7 or whatever it is. But it's coming from people who are local to LA, right? They watch a lot of Rams games. They're in market for the Rams. So there's a lot of information there. And what it seems like is that the people, west of the Mason-Dixon, the people in that -3 time zone, they seem to have a much higher opinion of Jared Verse than people who aren't in that time zone. But let's see what Pro Football Talk has to say about this trade, and then let's chat about it.
But that's what makes the decision to part ways with Jared Verse so different than just giving up a draft pick.
Yes.
You've scratched off the lottery ticket, and it's a winner. And you're giving it up. That's not what you're supposed to do. The whole idea is you draft the guy. If he pans out, you build around him. And my first thought when I saw Verse in this, I didn't think, wow, the Rams wanted Myles Garrett so badly, they're giving up a key young talent. I thought, man, there must be a story about Jared Verse that the Rams are kind of like, they're not going to admit this, but is he a pain in the ass? Like, has there been something that's gone on? I don't know, but that was my first thought, my first curiosity. Like, they're just done with this guy? Because I couldn't imagine a team giving up a guy that they truly view as a key piece for the future.
Yeah.
Why would you do that when he's 5 years younger? Why would you give this guy up? You can get a lot more out of him. Now you're going to have to pay him as soon as after this season, and because he's a two-time Pro Bowler, he's going to have one of those fifth-year options. It's going to make you say, oh, geez. Well, that's going to make it complicated to sign him to a long-term deal, because that's one of the key drivers in how high that number.
I mean, the answer to Mike Florio's profound, his confusion, I think it's very simple. The Rams clearly think Myles Garrett is a significantly better football player than Jared Verse. And that doesn't mean that they think Jared Verse is bad or that Jared Verse isn't a good player. There's just a difference between, like, there's levels. There's the difference between somebody who is a Pro Bowl level player and an All-Pro level player. And then within All-Pro level players, there's a difference between somebody who makes an All-Pro team once in their career versus somebody who's a staple on an All-Pro team. And in between those people who are staples on All-Pro teams, there's a difference between people who are going to be first ballot Hall of Famers in that same tier to people who are the best of their position, of their generation, or of a lifetime, right? And Myles is at the tippy top of that conversation. He's not just an All-Pro. He's not just a really good player. He's not simply just the best defensive player in football this year. He is the best defensive player in football of the last, when did Aaron Donald leave? About 2009? So of the last 5 years, not 2009, 19. So since Aaron Donald retired, he's had the throne. You can make the argument he's a generational defensive player, a literal generational defensive player. And Jared Verse is a two-time Pro Bowler. Jared Verse is somebody who could be an All-Pro caliber player, but Myles is the bar. Not even the bar. Myles is the ceiling to that conversation. And that's why the Rams, they did it. I don't know why that's hard to understand. The Rams are in a win-now window. They got a super old quarterback. And they want the best possible version of whatever players they can have on that roster which means, they're going to give up a very good Jared Verse to upgrade to a Hall of Fame, best of his generation in his prime, Myles Garrett. You know what I mean? It's pretty simple to me why it is that the Rams would do that. The question is more like, why did the Browns trade him? And I think the answer to that question is the Browns did not think that they could keep Myles Garrett long term. If the Browns thought that they could keep Myles Garrett until he wanted to retire, Myles Garrett wouldn't have been traded, right? But that's not how they felt. They felt like they could maybe keep him this year. After that, it's a huge question mark how ugly the situation would get and how much they're going to be willing to deal with that situation as they're trying to usher in a new quarterback, right? And for the Browns, it's like, yeah, you might take a hit in your ceiling for how good a player is by getting Jared Verse in lieu of Myles Garrett, but you get draft picks to make up for that, and Jared Verse seems like the kind of guy that you can keep long term and you don't have to worry about constantly if he wants to be here if you're Cleveland, and that might be worth it to Cleveland in the long run. We'll be able to evaluate this trade over time, but that's what Cleveland was thinking, and that's what the Rams were thinking. And through that lens, this trade does make sense for both sides. Will it work out that way? Who knows? You know what I mean? The Rams could completely fall apart. Matt Stafford's back could break down. Ty Simpson could not be that good. And they fall apart. They don't end up having a championship window and everybody's frustrated, right? The Browns certainly are no stranger to understanding that a trade that you're making to take you over the top, I don't know, like, trading for Deshaun Watson in 2022, could certainly blow up in your face, because the Browns in 2022, when they traded for Deshaun Watson, that was a move to take them over the top, right? Oh, we're going to be a championship contender now. And then it blew up in their face. So not saying Myles is Deshaun Watson, obviously very different situations there, but sometimes trades work out that you expect to work out. Sometimes trades that you really think are going to work out don't. And on the flip side to this, for Cleveland, if Jared Verse takes a step, he becomes a 12, 13 sack a season guy, easily becomes the Browns' second best pass rusher in franchise history, and they're able to keep him around and make him just a two-helmet player, then that's going to be worth it to them, right? And they get the draft picks. They become a good team eventually. That's going to be worth it to them, right? So, yeah, I mean, you can make it make sense for both sides. The timing of it, you can argue whether it needed to happen right now. I think there's an argument to be made there. And, the likelihood of it working out for both sides, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But the reasoning for it, I think, makes more sense than Mike Florio is really putting the effort to make it make sense, in my opinion.
Yeah. Jaylen Carter, for example, the Eagles defensive tackle, he's looking at 27-1. That's one of the reasons he doesn't have a long-term contract in Philadelphia, because it pushes his franchise tag number for 2028 up to $30 million and change. And not to deviate too much from the topic, but this is directly related. There has been reporting that the Eagles were in this too.
Yeah, of course.
The Browns wanted Jaylen Carter, and the Eagles said, no, we're not going to do it.
Right.
So the Eagles draw the line in the sand. We're not giving up our young rising star. Now, Jaylen Carter, I think you would say, is better than Jared Verse.
Yes.
But to get this done, the Rams had to be willing to say, we'll give you this piece that helps you replace Myles Garrett.
Yeah, no, I think you're saying it all right. From my understanding, we're just texting a few people in the league over the last few days. That's why it was a short list of teams that were involved. Cleveland was intent on, we need another D lineman then. If we're going to give Myles Garrett, somebody's got to give us back another blue chip defensive lineman. And that's why I think a lot of teams weren't even involved in this, because as you know, and we talk about it all the time, teams are like, well, we need pass rushers. We can't give anybody away. Well, we don't have enough of that. The Rams were in a spot where, yes, they had the luxury to make that type of move. And they looked at it to go, you know what, we'll take Myles Garrett and what we think he can bring for the next 3 years, over the fact that, yeah, like you're saying, Jared Verse is just about to hit his prime and continue that way. So
I will say this, though, from the Rams side of this, I wouldn't look at this as short term, though. You know what I mean? It depends on how long your window is and how good Ty Simpson is. But let's say Ty Simpson takes up the mantle for Matt Stafford and He's Jimmy Garoppolo. He's Brock Purdy, right? Not amazing, but good enough, which I think Ty Simpson has a good chance of being in the right system with the right coach, which I think he's in the right place for, regardless of how Sean McVay feels about it. Now, if Sean McVay retires, the bottom falls off, everything's off the table. But let's say that happens for them and they are able to extend their window because their quarterback gets younger because they made the pick for Ty Simpson, which is possible. I don't think Miles' game is going to age rapidly. I think Miles is going to be a pretty good player when he's 36 and 37 and 38 years old. You know what I mean? I think his longevity is going to be really, really strong. And I think people are underestimating just how good and how long he can be good. You know, I think it's really going to be something like LeBron-like for Miles. So if you're a Rams fan watching this, I know people are telling you it's like a 2 to 3 year thing, but I don't know. That could last way longer than you would think. Because I think people are really underestimating the longevity of somebody like Myles Garrett, especially somebody who can win as a pass rusher with as many different tools as he has, right? Like he's not reliant on any one individual skill to be good, which those are usually the guys who age a little bit faster, guys who are more reliant on getting things done one way. Miles gets things done a lot of ways. So it's like, I think he's probably going to age really well as a player as he gets older and be pretty productive late into his career. So I wouldn't underestimate that part of it. I think people aren't really factoring that in. We're going to continue reacting to this video. Well, first, I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a fun way to earn cash while you watch your favorite teams. No complex betting rules. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Here are my picks for this upcoming season, AFC North edition. Jimmy Bernard, I have less than 475. This has to do with volume available in Pittsburgh's offense. Quincy Judkins, I have over 975. Browns improved line. I think the run game is going to be better with it. Chase Brown, under 900 yards. Joe Burrow equals less rushing yards usually for the Bengals offense. Mark Andrews, more than 475 yards. Lamar's going to need a safety blanket. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You could follow me on the app at Quinn_C to see all my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineup to download the app using the link in the description.
They're going to be compared against each other. The Eagles, on the other hand, they said no, but like you said, I mean, you know, to me, Jaylen Carter, when he's healthy, is arguably, top 3, maybe the best defensive player in football. You've heard me wax poetically about him. I mean, I come in on some days and tell you, I go, man, I watched the Eagles film. Holy shit, Jaylen Carter, right? He can ruin a game. And I think when he's healthy, and the Eagles know when he's healthy, he is that type of player. So they weren't willing to do that. Jared Verse, awesome Pro Bowls.
So here's the one thing, though, that I would throw out there about Jaylen Carter, right? Because that was the other player that could have been sent to Cleveland in return for Myles Garrett. And in Philadelphia decided that they didn't want to do that, right? And I wondered, like, you know, if given both options, right? You know, because the way it's presented, it's like at one point the Browns did ask the Eagles for Jaylen Carter. They said no, and then the Browns got a yes about Jared Verse, and then they just went with that direction. I don't think they ever circled back and said, hey, they're giving us Jared Verse. Do you want to give us, do you want to give us Jaylen Carter? I don't think that's where that got to, if you read the reports fully. So that means, like, I wonder if at the end of the day the Browns still would have went with Verse because of the character stuff, with Verse being so positive and such a fit for them versus Carter, who is kind of what they're trying to move away from. And I know the Browns, and especially Andrew Berry, has a reputation for going after questionable character guys, but if you really look over the last couple of years, what Andrew Berry has used his premium assets on, these are all guys who pass the locker room test, because what they're trying to build is a positive culture in that locker room. And right now, this team is really young and malleable. And Jaylen Carter, from people who I talk to that cover the Philadelphia Eagles, has problems, right? You need some infrastructure in your building to be able to make sure Jaylen Carter can get to work. And when Jared Verse gets here, I hear him talking his press conference. I don't see a player who I think is going to struggle to be the best version of himself, even if the team's not good. Everything I see about Jaylen Carter tells me that's not somebody you want on a bad football team, right? And that's the thing I don't think enough people think about, right? Some players cannot be on bad football teams because once winning as a motivation is not a driving thing for them, right? You're not playing for a championship every year. Then you start to see guys show some bad habits, or sometimes with some guys, you get to see guys show some bad habits. The Browns are looking for people who are going to be the same person, whether you're 5-0 or 0-5, right? Does Jaylen Carter really feel like a guy who's going to be locked in and focused if the team's not winning? Jared Verse does. So I do wonder if given the choice between both of them and the same exact compensation, what would the Browns do given that situation? Because yes, Jaylen Carter, his ceiling feels higher than Jared Verse. I don't know if that's true, but if you just look at the ridiculous stuff that we've seen Jaylen Carter do on tape versus Jared Verse, who's a good player but doesn't do stuff that makes you go, oh my God, right? Like, a Jaylen Carter does. There's no doubt that that feels like a higher ceiling for Jaylen Carter. But did the baggage outweigh that higher ceiling? I think there's an argument for it might being able to outweigh it. But let's continue.
Yes, all of that, but not in the Jaylen Carter category, and I think that's why the Rams could stomach that one to trade him off there.
It is a reminder, above all else, that all these players are interchangeable. A team acting in its best interests will
honor and privilege, Mike. It's honor and privilege.
It's an honor and a privilege to be drafted by the team and be told this is where you're going to go. And then, because no rookie has a no-trade clause in their contract, I'm surprised no rookie has tried to negotiate a no-trade clause in his contract.
Interesting,
really.
Yeah.
In this age with NIL.
People just throw NIL out there to try to make whatever nonsense they just said make sense. Like in this age in NIL, I'm surprised nobody has ever negotiated a no-trade clause. Why would a team ever do that? Think about what a rookie contract negotiation is. You're basically arguing about roster bonus dates. That's how locked down this language is in a rookie contract. And this guy's out here talking about you get a no-trade clause put in a rookie deal. I'm sure somebody has tried, and they got laughed out the room. What? You can't get a no-trade clause in a rookie deal. Nobody. Why? What would incentivize? What does the agent of the rookie have to even offer to make that no-trade clause make sense to the team? What are we talking about? I'm just not going to show up. Then you're not going to play in the NFL. No trade clause. That's so. Come on, man. Mike Florio just be saying stuff sometimes, and I don't know what the motivation is. Maybe he just wants to see somebody try it because he's a lawyer and he's legally curious about this. But it's not a mystery why nobody's done that.
There is no trade clause for Jared Verse. He can be moved around on the chessboard. He can be removed from the Rams football machine and plugged into another team's football machine, and it changes everything. And sometimes you have some say, sometimes you don't have say. Like when the Browns traded for Odell Beckham Jr. OBJ had no say. He just went. And I don't think anybody was tiptoeing around Jared Verse. He's just treated as a pawn on a chessboard in this greater goal of trying to make the Rams better than they are. Hi, it's Mike Florio.
Jeez. Mike went dark there, dude. Why did he go so dark? What the hell was that? Who ate his Cheerios in the morning? Somebody must have been in the Pro Football Talk office and ate the shit in the fridge and said Mike on it, because that man went dark at the end. I mean, he went so dark at the end. I thought he was about to try to start the revolution. That was insane. He's like, you need to burn down these establishments and then cut them all to pieces. Damn. It ain't that bad. You just got traded to Cleveland. That's not it. That's not the worst thing in the world. Could have been sent to Cincinnati. In all seriousness, I want to know your answer to this question. Do you think the Browns should have tried harder to get Jaylen Carter in return for Myles Garrett? Do you think the upside as a player is worth dealing with some of the stuff that comes with Jaylen Carter, right? Some of the antics, the concern. And look, I know people will make the argument that Jaylen Carter hasn't had to miss football because of these antics that much. But his stuff off the field has cost him positioning in his career. And like, if you talk to people who cover that beat, they are aware that there are problems underneath the surface there with Jaylen Carter. But you cannot deny the level of player that Jaylen Carter is capable of being. Or are you okay with going with what the Browns went with, which is Jared Verse? Maybe the ceiling isn't as high with Jared Verse, but the character is. And again, I think the thing we got to factor in is the Browns' whole reason for trading Myles Garrett, which I would have to assume is they did not feel like keeping him long-term was going to be possible. So if you're going to trade Myles because you can't keep him long-term and you're going to replace him with somebody, I would think the guy that you replace him with is somebody that you feel like you could keep long-term. And if we're having that conversation between Jaylen Carter and Jared Verse, I feel like Jaylen Carter is much more likely to put you in the same exact position that you're in with Myles if you don't have a bunch of winning seasons once you get Jaylen Carter, right? Where with Jared Verse, he seems more like somebody who's willing to thug it out for a couple of seasons while you're trying to get better. And trust in the process, right? We'll see what happens, but that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.